Guys, I'm Travelandtash from travelandtash.com, and today I'm coming to you from Bukchon Hanok Village. This place means a lot to me for various reasons. It was one of the places that I visited when I first visited Korea, and that was nearly 4 years ago. And I recall seeing it in the Planet Guide, Lonely Planet Guide, and I thought to myself, my God, that needs to be a place that I prioritise on my first visit to Seoul. And here I am in the thick of what is a gorgeous, gorgeous view. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a 360 of what I can see right now. This is the address of where I'm at right now, and so that's Bukchon Row 11 Gil. And one of the reasons that I love this place is because I discovered that here I could actually take semi-private classes. I took what's called Maedup. Weaving, not weaving, but is knot making. The traditional Koreans, I guess a long time ago, used to make accessories that were used for the aristocratic classes here, particularly for wedding functions. And I sat in one of these Hanok houses with like a bunch of older ladies, and there was one teacher there, and she was showing us, how do you do these knots, and correcting me when I needed some corrections. And then on several occasions, I came to do painting classes. Koreans love watercolor, and I learnt a particular technique called the lady called it graduation, and she was like, "Oh no, you need to do graduation here," and she was showing me how to paint lotus flowers in the traditional style. I'm just going to give you a 360 of where I'm at right now. Look at that gorgeous view right there. That is the Seoul Tower that's on Namsung Park. It's where a lot of tourists visit to get an aerial view of the city. And this is also a location where a lot of filming has been done for Korean drama. A lot of people actually visit Korea because they've heard a lot about Korean drama itself. And anyway, so this, another reason why I really like this location is because it's a really peaceful and calm location. Like, you can just come here and enjoy the serenity without too much traffic. And that is one challenge about Seoul, is the constant traffic, where you're sometimes dodging cars, you're weaving in between cars. And for me, that adds quite a bit of stress. And I like to be in locations where there is limited car movement. It helps me kind of relax, and that's why this is one of my favourite locations to be. It's funny because I've actually lived in Seoul, for a few years, and while I've been here, I've hardly taken any videos, and it's interesting because in the process of travelling to various locations in Asia and Europe while having lived here, I've hardly recorded anything about Korea itself, my own neighbourhood, my own backyard. I'll just show you this gorgeous view that I have right here. There's actually, I'm not sure which, that might be Bukhansan Mountain or Bulmansan, I'm not sure. To me, some of the mountains, the names sound quite similar, and I get confused as to which is which. Humidity today is nuts. If I'm glowing and sweaty, you know that it's because it's because the humidity index today is crazy. There's a cute little kitty down there. Anyway, so another thing I really like about the Hanok village is the beautiful, the designs of the Hanok houses. Ever since doing my archaeological excavation in just north of Aqaba, I've developed an interest in not just architecture, but the inner workings of how certain functions work within a house. For example, the maintenance of being able to keep a house cool. And one of the really neat things here in Bukchon Hanok Village is that you have hundreds of these ancient style houses that have been preserved really well. And in fact, what the developers here continue to do is actually renovate and even construct brand new Hanok houses in the style, in the ancient style of how it used to be done, and that requires the construction of roofs in such a way that they can deflect heat in summertime and retain warmth in wintertime. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the ondel floor heating, which in a way is kind of similar to the way ancient Romans used to keep their houses heated, and that was through a furnace that was kept burning underneath the floor of the Roman, let's say the Roman villa. And it's really cool to actually see two civilizations that really are so far apart, but nevertheless had similar construction details in their architectural styles. And so I guess for me to notice similarities like that is really, that was one of the most fascinating things. And I remember when I first got here and I actually messaged my professor, Dr. Olsen. He was my art and architecture teacher in Victoria when I was doing my degree at the University of Victoria. He, I messaged him and I was like, oh my goodness, the heating construction here in Korea is so similar to, just to ancient Roman forms of heating the floors using their hypercost systems. Anyway, so it's been a huge learning experience for me. And so while, I've become accustomed to, wandering past beautiful palaces, ancient Korean palaces and beautiful Hanok houses, on my weekends off, because palaces and Hanok houses are kind of in the central downtown district of Seoul. They're interspersed. That even though I've become accustomed to this kind of wonderful view, that nevertheless, I can try to take a time out and reflect on it with fresh eyes as the foreigner that first arrived in Seoul, and how I felt initially when I first arrived. And when I look back on some of those videos I recorded, like the first time that I saw Changdeokgung, the entrance to Changdeokgung Palace, and I see, and I remember that enthusiasm that I had when I first discovered it. It reminds me of why I love traveling, why it's so meaningful to me to continue to do what I do, and how constant learning about other cultures and learning about, what they do, that's similar or different to what I've been accustomed to, in my life thus far, and, what I can learn about this culture that, potentially changes me forever. I mean, that's really what a lot of traveling does to you, right? It helps to open your eyes to different ways of looking at our world, and realizing that people's concepts of the world and their own worlds are so different from what you are experiencing right now or what I'm experiencing. If I lived here in Bukchon Hanok Village, I'll tell you one thing, and that is that my life would be incredibly different from the life I currently lead, which is living in Gangnam, which is an urban metropolis of crazy traffic and a lot of stress. And so it's funny, and also, the difference between living in Seoul versus perhaps living in a location like Busan or Jeju Island. I'm going to very, very quickly give you a 360 right now. This gorgeous, gorgeous panoramic. Over here in this direction here, somewhere over here between the two palaces. So over here, this way is Gyeonbokgung Palace. I don't know, can you see that wall right along there? There's one just by these trees where that bus is driving right now. That is Gyeongbokgung Palace. So somewhere over here is the Blue House, which is where the Korean president lives. And then just behind us would be Changdeokgung, which is the other palace. Both of which have undergone restoration and invasion and destruction thanks to Japanese occupation, particularly prior to World War II. Look at these roofs. Look at that. I on one particular tour at a palace, one of the tour guides explained to me that when a house has plain colouring, it usually denotes that the people in there are of humble origin, let's say, whereas coloured. So, for example, when you walk past a palace and it's decorated with greens and reds and so forth, that was limited only to the aristocratic classes or the royalty in Korea. I guess at that time that would have been the Joseon dynasty. But anyway, Maedup, doing Maedup knots, coming here to do painting, learning about graduation and how to do watercolours on wooden block painting, also on fans, on paper fans. Those are some of the attractions for coming here. A lot of people come, to see where all of these dramas were recorded. A lot of people come here just to have a peaceful walk, and some people come here for the panoramics, right? Just so incredible, right? Anyway, if you haven't visited Korea, there are definitely reasons to come to Seoul, and I highly recommend actually checking out, particularly, let's say, the Bukchon Hanok Village area, which is one of my favourites, and I'm sure it will continue to be. And I know that I won't live in Korea forever, but I feel that when I revisit Seoul in the future, when I no longer live here, that Bukchon Hanok Village will be on my list to see every single time I return to Seoul. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hit the bell button to subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I appreciate your comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like this. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.